Program Director, Boksburg, Chairperson we SETA, the DG of the Department of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Sishi, as well as other senior managers of the DHET who are here. The SETA chairpersons, Oslal, and the CEOs, and members of the SETA accounting authorities who are all here. Greetings to all of you. Representatives of our post-school entities and institutions, our universities, TVET colleges and community colleges. Ilezinto zenu-ke ezingakwazi uku-adjusta ku-size babantu. Ngoba manje une-problem ukuthi aningiboni lapha. Ngoba kunale design which is discriminatory. Terrible. Let me also greet other senior government officials who are here. Representatives from organized labor, the trade unions, and business representatives and other representatives of industry, community-based organizations, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I've realized that I've got the right speech here, but let me complete the other speech I nearly took out. That on the 29th of May, we are all going out to vote. Okay? So I've got the right speech then, not the election campaign. I'm very honored to deliver this keynote address at this historic gathering, the SETA Skills Summit. We haven't had such a summit for a very long time, if ever also of this nature. Possibly the one of this nature is the first one. This summit is important in a number of respects. The DG has highlighted some of the contextual issues and how these discussions in this summit relates to the work that we are doing in the Department of Higher Education and Training. Let me acknowledge that the summit is a product of the vision of the chairpersons of the SETA boards, their forum, as well as the Association of SETA Chief Executive Officers, working with my department. I remember the CEOs, about 4 of them, waylaying me at the airport to come and brief me about this plan. I'm glad that this is materialized. Mangabe ngicabanga ukuthi nize kumina njengo Nicodemus bobumnyama hayi sengiyasho ke ngenza ukuthi cha neza kumina nazongibona. So in other words, I'm briefed. To help us appreciate the importance of this summit, I wish to highlight a few key things. The first is the important role that is played by our SETAs in skills development in our country. I know that to many people, SETAs is a swear word. I hope that coming out of this summit, you will also be able to communicate very clearly a lot of good work that is being done by our SETAs. We are not saying that there are no problems or challenges, but there is a hell of a lot of good work that is being done by our SETAs. Of course, yes, give yourselves a big round of applause. Some of them I can mention them even if you wake me up at night. When I started as Minister of Higher Education and Training in 2009, most, if not all of the SETAs were all up there in fancy offices, nicely locked, and largely what they were doing, they were processing training contracts with service providers. It's a big change today. I remember one mentioned this SETA CEO once told me that Nzimande, SETAs are not government entities. They are entities of the private sector. So we are not going to tell us what to do. Yes. I'm glad he's gone, and I wish he never comes back to the SETA space. Today, the SETAs have built a very strong relationship with our TVET college sector. Anyone who denies that, stand up and say, Minister, we are not speaking the truth. Our SETAs have helped us to build skills centers, including in the remotest of rural areas where there is not a single post-school and education and training institution. Our SETAs have increased learnerships and apprenticeships in a big way. Our SETAs have helped to place our TVET college graduates who have been unemployed, who have been requiring what in their own language they call in-service training. We call it workplace-based training. Our SETAs have made a lot of contribution to that. Now, our detectors and enemies, they would say, yeah, Nzimande, we are saying this now, we are beginning to campaign. Government work doesn't stop because there's going to be an election on the 29th of May. This is the work that we are continuing to do. It's been a long road, but I am glad that the SETAs today do understand our mandate about what their role should be. That is why I've always been saying, please publicize your work. You know, you can do excellent work, but if you don't tell anybody about it, no one will know. I'm not saying there are no challenges. I'll mention a few of them just now. Through their sector-specific focus and expertise, our SETAs contribute significantly to addressing skills gaps, skills mismatches, promoting employment and enhancing productivity within their respective industries. Our SETAs also play a crucial role in aligning training and development efforts with the needs of employers and the labor market, thus ensuring the development of a skilled and capable workforce that can become a catalyst for economic growth and development. Ama-SETA ngiyawathanda abashadisi. Yeah. Ndifuna nishadise ama-TVET, nama-employers, the youth that is unemployed with workplace experience. Yes, makuthiwa khona abashadisi abakhulu kule sector yami, yinina. You are the matchmakers. And continue to do that. Now, I'm not going to talk about the policy context, the white paper, the DG has spoken about some of those things, the National Skills Development Plan, and so on. Now, this policy instrument that the DG has outlined are not only critical for enabling our country to articulate and implement a coherent human resources development plan, but also to ensure that we embrace a skills development approach that is collaborative and sustainable, as opposed to a piecemeal and competition-driven approach. I'm glad that one of the key objectives of this meeting, of this summit, is to ensure that SETAs are able to better coordinate amongst themselves, but also with other key role players, something that is very important. This is important because if we consider the unacceptably high number of unemployed young people in our country and the urgent challenge of what we call the needs, neither in employment, those who are neither in employment, education, or training, as well as people who are not in any formal education employment, and training. The SETAs therefore becomes important. By the way, I want to say I'm passionate about this. I'm very passionate about media monitoring. I would like, by the way, every SETA to have some media monitoring capacity. What is being said about your sector? What is being said about the work that you do? The other day I was listening to the SAFM show just after the 11 o'clock news, saying that we've got 9.9 million youth that is neither in employment, education, or training. That's not our statistic. Now, I sat and listened. Nobody came in, even a single one. Ordinarily, we should have gone back to SAFM to say, sorry, here are the correct statistics, that it's just over 3 million, 3.3 or so, young people who are in this category. Because if you allow such a thing to continue being said, we give a wrong impression. It's therefore important that a collaborative approach is followed. In any case, what is important about this summit, and one of your goals, that of collaborative work, is that there are a lot of areas that are forcing you to collaborate, as SETAs as well as with other stakeholders. If I can just remind you briefly, in 2020, I extended the life of the SETAs from being every 5 years to 10 years. 2020 to 2029, 2030, I said, let's treat it as one period, so no SETA will be dissolved within that time, so that there is continuity of programs with a longer term view and better planning and much more certainty. I'm glad that you are exploiting that, because then in this summit you are going to say, what have we done over the last 5 years? Where have we fallen short? And what are we going to do over the next 5 years to improve? And what kinds of major goals do we want to achieve? That, for me, is very important, what we are doing. Now, there are areas that force you to collaborate, in any case. One, the SETAs, all of them, must focus on workplace training. Don't just take that money, what you call the mandatory grant. Just give it to the employers and then you lose interest. Because I can tell you some employers are doing very well with that money. Others are not doing great. It's just some extra cash that we are not sure whether it's actually being used for what it's supposed to be used for. So you must actively monitor that. And it's important that you also discuss in this summit, how do you monitor the money that we have given to employers? Yes, it is mandatory to employers, but unlike that CEO who is no longer here, it's not for employers to do as they wish. We need workplace training, including internships and learnerships. Our own research, by the way, tells us that 70% plus of youngsters who have gone through an internship or a learnership, they end up being employed. So you must pay attention, and you have a common interest in sharing experiences as SETAs on ensuring that the mandatory grant is actually spent for what it's supposed to spend for. No employer must tell you that it's none of your business. You actually are handling these monies, but develop a positive relationship with the employers. Not behave like a speed cop. Not that speed cop are doing bad work, they're doing good work. We need to do more than that. I was Minister of Transport, I don't want to say, I'm saying speed cops. If you're speeding, you must be caught and be fined, no matter how painful it is. But let's develop relations with employers so that we are able to both jointly monitor that. But that's one common thing already amongst the SETAs. The other common thing amongst the SETAs is that we need artisan production. Not all the SETAs are in this, but most of the SETAs are in this. The production of artisans is a priority for our country. Also, you need to better coordinate the already good work that we are doing in skill centers. Now, I don't want to turn this into a political platform, but some of the opposition to government today, when you invite them and say, let's together go, like I'm inviting them now to go with me to Skukuni, to go and open the WNR Skills Center. They don't come. And then they say, Minister, the SETAs are wasting money. I'm inviting them again, Ozan. And there are many others. You go to Richmond, we're opening another one, Mkuza, deep in the rural areas, in KZN. There are many other skill centers that we are also opening in many parts of the country. Now, you have an interest in coordinating and sharing experiences as SETAs on this issue of skill centers. Also, by the way, what I'm calling for, if SETA A builds a skill center, there is no reason why SETA B and SETA C up to SETA 20 can't say, what is it? Already there is infrastructure, already there is a center, already there is a place where there is activity. What would be wrong if we also see how, as the other SETAs can come in and build there? That's another area of your cooperation within the context of your high impact. It makes it easy if you already have, even if it's a couple of buildings, they already have services, they are connected, all you have to do is to expand. Also, the other area of cooperation is your support to TVET colleges. That you are already doing, but you need to do more. And another area of cooperation is relationship with employers, relationship with industry. These are some of the things that you are already doing. So I'm glad the summit is going to look into this and identify new areas for collaboration so that you don't work in silos as the SETAs. But to say so does not mean that the sectoral work that each SETA is doing is no longer important. You must do both. Do your sectoral work excellently, but also collaborate where we are supposed to collaborate. These two things, in fact, do talk to each other. I was reminding the chairperson of the Peace SETA that in the language that he knows is that there is a dialectical relationship, chairperson of ETDP SETA, between sectoral work and cooperative work. The two reinforce and must reinforce each other. Because I don't want a situation for a SETA CEO to say to me, no, Minister, we have agreed now on collaborating, so don't come and ask me about my own sectoral work. So it's very important. Now, I want to also say something about why this summit is extra special. This summit is extra special because you have already identified high-impact programs which we are launching today that are aligned to our country's National Development Plan and the National Skills Development Plan, and I dare say also aligned to the Human Resources Development Strategy. And you must keep on checking that as you implement, we are still within this framework. Now, the focus areas, let me talk briefly about the focus areas, your 6 high-impact areas. So that you see that as a minister, I am not just second-guessing you, but I have got a very deep understanding of this. All right? That I am a champion of this. The first one is infrastructure development. I'm very glad, I'm very happy that the SETAs have identified this as a high impact area. One problem that I identified when we started the Department of Higher Education and Training in 2009 was that where normally you have the biggest need for skills training, deep in the rural areas, there are no infrastructure, there are no facilities. And you can't be training an artisan under a tree. With due respect, you can't do that. The fact that we managed to say some of the SETA monies must contribute to building infrastructure because you can't train without that infrastructure, I am glad that we are prioritizing this and we are integrating it into our national skills development thinking. So this is very important, precisely to improve capacity for provision of services. Sometimes, by the way, Kachen, I don't like this concept of delivery. Concept of delivery is a problem. It reminds me of a wheelbarrow. That government goes past like a wheelbarrow. Problem with a wheelbarrow is that if you put it down and leave it there, you'll find it there the next day. That's not how we should be thinking of working as government. We should be thinking of provision of services. Okay, we call it deliver for now. So it's very important. Also, the goal of significant reduction of the unemployed people, including graduates, is an absolutely central second high impact area. And SETAs play a crucial role here. Ilana abashat this corner foot, Dr. End. Because one of the biggest challenges we are facing in our country is what we call transition from an educational institution to the workplace. That transition is one of the most challenging things that we are facing. And SETAs with their internships and learnerships, amongst others, it's very important in the reduction of unemployment. And don't say because at the moment we've got high unemployment, then you must stop doing these things. Because then if the economy picks up and we haven't done these things, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to be in trouble. Precisely when things are down, you invest more in education and skills development. That is what we must understand. The third area also, which I agree with fully, is sustainable entrepreneurship, SMMEs, and cooperatives. That's a crucial area because these are not necessarily areas of employment, but it's areas of self-employment and also creation of jobs. I've ended up being convinced now as minister. At some stage, I wasn't convinced. Can you really teach umuntu ongakazadayisa amakinati emgaqweni kaDambuza ukuthi abe entrepreneur? But at least you must have that. I had my younger brother, he's late now. He was selling peanuts at school until he saved enough and bought a bicycle to be able to go to school. But now I am aware that you can actually teach entrepreneurship. And we must support that. And we must support the strengthening of SMMEs. You know, in South Africa, we've got this problem of thinking of SMMEs as peripheral. We are the only country that thinks that way. SMMEs actually are the best in terms of training and development. If you go to countries that have got the best training like Germany, the majority of trainers, 80%, where apprenticeships are happening, where learnerships and internships are happening, is in SMMEs. Of course, the advantage of an SMME is that we have got 5 employees, or 6, or 10, or 12. If you are a trainee there, you get the closest kind of attention. because we are in a small workplace. Unlike the big companies where our interns end up doing photocopying and making tea and coffee. So it's very important, this area. I fully support it, that you have identified and what role can SETAs play. Fourth area is holistic digitization and advancement of technological infrastructure, research and development. Without investment in new technologies and training in new technologies, we are in trouble as a country. And there are new technologies that are emerging every day and all the time. So it's very important that the SETAs are actually in the forefront of this, including investment in technological infrastructure. The fifth area is effective and efficient shared services on information and communications technology. It means you have been listening to me. You know that I've been pushing for this for the longest of time. How are we sharing platforms? I was being asked by 702 this morning, why is there a high dropout rate in some of the skills programs run by the SETAs? Then I managed to say, one of the things we do not have, ideally what we should be having is that I, as a minister sitting in my office, I should be able to press a button and get a map of all training centers of all the SETAs and see the trainees knocking in. A learner management system. How many are there in that training center? How many have they clocked in? So that we know how many there are, such that we are better able to do that. If you can do this, we are also going to go a long way in minimizing not just double dipping, triple dipping. We sometimes have Boksburg Nzimande as a trainee in 4 SETAs at the same time. How does that happen? That one person is being trained 4 different programs of the SETAs at the same time. It means there is a problem. It means there is corruption. It means you are unable to actually monitor that situation. This is going to go a long way in improving this. I like also your 6th area of rural development for community impact. Usually it helps, by the way, just in terms of optics, that rural development, you put it on top. Because if it's at the end, it's like it's an afterthought. It certainly can't be an afterthought. Rural development is fundamental in our country. So that we are even able, by the way, to try and arrest this one-way migration to the cities and leaving the rural areas unattended to. But you won't be able to do these things, high-impact areas, unless you also bear in mind the following. I'm now enriching, and it is part of the discussion. Summit is discussing. I won't be here, unfortunately, tomorrow to participate. The first thing, what is your relationship as SETAs in relation to these matters with the National Skills Fund? Don't place the National Skills Fund outside of this, because there is lots of collaboration. I know some of the SETAs who are very poor. Now, of course, COATDP SETA says we are all poor. No, sis. We are not poor. If we are all poor, but we are not poor in the same way. There are those who are better in being poor, and there are those who are hopelessly poor. The PSETA is supposed to be the richest. It's very poor. You can't do some of your programs or even contribute here unless you are able, DG, to go to the NSF and say, please, let's partner with you. Another very crucial, all the SETAs are important, by the way. But one SETA that's operating in a crucial sector, agriculture, agri-SETA, aina mali. Because there aren't enough contributions. And then go and partner with the NSF. So I'm adding now, add the NSF as one key dimension in realizing your high impact areas, okay? The second thing that I'm now adding, which is crucial, you won't be able to achieve these things unless also there is interdepartmental and intergovernmental cooperation. That is why I don't like this thing. I won't lament Mvalo, don't be worried. That you get a SETA going out to have a huge program with a premier there and a premier there, and then as the minister responsible for the SETAs, I know nothing about that. We are undermining our goal of intergovernmental cooperation. Because it's better that if you go and partner with the province, myself and that premier should both know about this and be able to engage. By the way, I once had a bad experience, and I won't mention this SETA, because I am not here. I'm looking at its CEO right now, currently. She wasn't there at that time. Okay? Had a big problem with one department and a colleague of mine. But they never told me. I only knew about that program when things started going wrong. Then they said, Minister, why is your SETA money being wasted there? Because there is no training that is happening or anything. Now it's very difficult as a minister then to put your own SETA under the bus. But I had no choice. I said, well, I'll go and check, because to be quite honest, I'm not exactly sure of what are the details of the program, because I did not know. But the media now was asking me, Parliament was asking me, and saying, Minister, you have to account for that money. So now if you just go as a SETA CEO or as a SETA, you go and make partnership with government department, this or that, and you don't come to me so that we can engage with the colleagues, so that we are able to coordinate better, you are actually killing even all these high impact areas. Sengihlala phansi. Ngoba ngiyakubona ukuthi uyanyakaza manje. And that's very career limiting kwegatsheni. Ungalinge nje uqala unyakaza uminister uma esakhuluma ukufuna ubekezela mfowethu yakho. Hlafuna amazinyo uwaqinisa njengendoda. Uyabona? Sengiyaqeda mfowethu. I'm finishing. It's just that I am as equally passionate as you are about all these areas. Let me conclude then, because I was about concluding. Please use these 2 days productively. Please use these 2 days to come up with solutions. Breakaway sessions are for solutions. They are not for lamenting. They are not for long prefaces on introductions, but it's about what is to be done. Because the SETAs have got such a crucial role to play, as I have said, in the transition from education institutions to the workplace, but also they act as a glue to bring together a number of institutions together so that we are able to provide the skills that we need to provide. By the way, people often speak as if skills shortages are still the same as they were 20 years or 30 years ago. It's no longer like that. There is a change and there is improvement, but we are still far from where we want to go to. We also have got other anomalies, by the way, that we have to address. Because statistics tells us that 50% of our engineers are not in engineering profession. They're in the health sector, they're in the banks, and a number of them, by the way, are building Dubai. South African engineers are there. They are not here in South Africa. How do we actually deal with these particular programs? So with these words then, I really wish you a successful 2-day summit. I am sorry that I can't be here with you much longer than lunchtime today, but I wish you all the best. But I am looking forward to getting a report from this. Of course, it will be good if you do it before the elections, you know? It will be very good, you know. But also may never know what happens after the elections. So it's very important that you do this work to the best of your ability in order to ensure that you are able to achieve what we need to achieve. SETAs are very important. Just get your act together more as we are doing through the Skills Summit. Thank you very much.
As DG would say, I'm absolutely sure you can do better, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Petty. Thank you very much. May I please ask who founder no CEO with SA Council for Graduates, Subabu Tamsang Namakubela, to join us in the front here whilst I do a small sum up on what the Minister and the DG have said. Just take homes so that that report carries what we've heard. Take homes from me are the following. There's good work that's been done, but there's more that needs to be done. Numbers do count, just as much as size does count. So the shape of the sector needs to look into the size of the sector as such. There's also a clear indication that we need to actually have more marriages. So we must go out there and throw a lot of cupids and also then make those marriages work and make those that we have made to also sustain and not get divorces. There's emphasis on SMMEs, cooperatives as supported, that we must focus on workplace training, coordination. We make sure that where they the Minister says we must go out to improve the relations with industry employers. Sector institutions must be out there. And Minister, the word provision shall henceforth be adopted in the PSET sector. Minister says we must involve the NSF in everything we do, and we must make sure that we drive for interdepartmental and intergovernmental cooperation. All of these will be captured, Minister, and in the report, Minister will get an outline of how this sector will make good on the injunctions and the mandates given today. Thank you, DG, for allowing us to follow through, and thank you, DG, for ensuring that we make these things to happen. Mr. Makube.
Greetings, Program Director. I would like to acknowledge the chairpersons of chairpersons. I also would like to acknowledge the CEOs of CEOs. the Director General, Dr. Sishi, our very important guest today, Honorable Minister Professor Nzimande, all SETA CEOs and chairpersons, and all of you, ladies and gentlemen, Molweni. Program Director, mine is to read a citation that comes from 2009 of sterling contribution, a very important work that has been done. I'm here today from the South African Council for Graduates to present Skills Development Catalyst Lifetime Impact Award to Professor Nzimande. In 2009, I met with the minister in Parliament. The next time I met with him was in 2012, and we've never met since then. But I'll tell you what has happened between. Universities have been able to grow the number of students up to over 1 million in 2020-2021. That's a huge milestone that has been achieved. During your reign and your leadership, Professor Nzimande, the enrollments for TVET colleges has almost doubled from what they were in 2010 to reach 589,083 learners in 2019. What an immense contribution. Not only did we increase and broaden access to higher education, but what has happened is that the democratic goals of a prosperous South Africa, of reducing the NEET statistics, 233,257 graduates have come through our public higher education institutions. We are very delighted, Minister, that there's a huge growth of young females who are actually able to graduate and find employment. Finally, a total of 19,536 learners have completed their artisanal skills. I would like to request the chairperson, together with the CEO of CEOs and our honorable minister, to come forward to receive this important, which is the first out of the Skills Development Catalyst Award to be conferred to a living South African.
Thank you.
I'm starting with this. I'm going to request Mr. Ngesi to bring the certificate, Mr. Iviwe, and I'm going to request Mr. Mark Cunningham to bring the plaque.